Michael Lawson, a successful black entrepreneur, decided to visit one of his high-end stores undercover, dressed as a regular customer. The store manager, unaware of Michael's true identity, made some disparaging, racially biased comments. The following day, the manager received an unexpected summons to the company's headquarters, where he was astounded to see Michael again. Michael stood at the corner of Park Avenue, blending seamlessly with the bustling New York crowd. A light fall breeze tugged at the edges of his simple, dark jacket. He pulled his baseball cap a bit lower, masking his face as he observed people streaming past his store, a sleek, upscale boutique with its name emblazoned in elegant gold above the door. Shoppers drifted in and out, their arms full of branded bags, the store's chic interior visible through large windows. Taking a deep breath, Michael stepped forward and opened the heavy glass door, a soft chime signaling his entry. Inside, the store was a sanctuary of polished marble floors, plush velvet chairs, and meticulously arranged displays of luxury fashion and jewelry. The faint scent of exclusive cologne hung in the air, mingling with soft jazz notes that set a refined mood. Michael had designed the space to be warm and inviting, a place where elegance felt accessible. But today, he felt like a stranger, clad in simple dark jeans, sneakers, and his nondescript black jacket. That was precisely his goal, to experience the store from the perspective of an average customer, uninfluenced by his wealth or status. Michael wandered over to a display of designer watches, admiring the craftsmanship and intricate details of each piece. He knew each watch intimately, having personally curated the collection, but today he appeared to be just another customer. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted Peter Dawson, the store's manager, standing near the counter. Peter, a man in his mid-50s with thinning hair and a suit slightly snug around the waist, was speaking to a well-dressed woman, his tone polite but practiced. As Michael moved closer to the watch display, Peter's gaze flickered toward him, the polite smile fading to a faint frown. Michael acted as if he hadn't noticed and picked up a watch, a sleek silver timepiece with a leather strap, turning it over in his hands to appreciate its weight. "Excuse me," Michael said in a relaxed tone, "could you tell me a bit about this watch?" Peter walked over with measured steps, giving Michael an appraising look that took in his casual attire and baseball cap. His expression was wary, even dismissive. "That's one of our exclusive models," Peter said, his tone clipped and perfunctory. "Very rare. It might not be the kind of piece you're looking for." Michael kept his friendly smile. "Oh, and why is that?" Peter's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's a top-tier item, very expensive. Maybe you'd be interested in something more affordable." Michael felt a spark of frustration but kept his composure. He decided to see how far this would go. "Actually, I'm a fan of high-end pieces," he replied calmly. "What makes this one so special?" Peter sighed as though being forced to explain something tedious. "It's crafted by one of the world's best watchmakers in Switzerland, using premium materials and exceptional craftsmanship. It's a collector's piece, only a limited number produced." Michael nodded thoughtfully, still holding the watch. "Sounds impressive. How much does it cost?" Peter hesitated, scanning Michael's face for any hint of whether he could actually afford it. "It's priced at $122,000, he said with a hint of reluctance. "But, as I mentioned, we have other pieces that might be more within your reach." Michael's smile didn't falter, though he felt a familiar frustration rising. He placed the watch back in the display case, meeting Peter's gaze. "And if I wanted to buy this one?" Peter's expression tightened with impatience. "Well, I'd need to see proof of payment first. We don't let just anyone walk out with our best pieces." Michael's expression remained calm, but inside he knew this interaction was far from over. Michael's face remained calm, but beneath the surface his patience was starting to fray. "So it's your store policy to question a customer's ability to pay before making a sale?" he asked. Voice even but pointed. Peter's tone grew defensive, and he straightened slightly. "It's not about questioning anyone," he replied tersely. "It's about protecting our brand's integrity. We have a certain image to uphold. We can't just let anyone come in and handle our merchandise." Michael held Peter's gaze for a beat longer, reading the unspoken judgment in the manager's eyes, then looked away with a slight nod. "I understand," he said softly. Turning from the display, He made his way toward the door, feeling Peter's eyes follow him, sizing him up, silently dismissing him. Pushing open the door, Michael stepped out into the cool city air, a swirl of emotions running through his mind. This was precisely the reality he had come to witness, and it was a disappointing one. Standing on the bustling sidewalk, blending back into the stream of passers-by, Michael let the encounter replay in his mind, anger simmering beneath his composed exterior. He had visited his stores in this way before, slipping in unannounced to observe how his staff treated customers without the influence of his presence. But this experience was different. Something deeper stinging, as he recalled the manager's veiled condescension. Michael knew he couldn't let this slide. Change was needed, and he intended to ensure it happened. For a moment, he paused outside, gathering his thoughts, then resolutely turned back to the store. His footsteps were purposeful as he walked through the door again, the soft chime announcing his re-entry. This time, he didn't bother surveying the store. He went straight to where Peter Dawson was standing, scrolling through his phone behind the counter. The manager looked up, his eyes narrowing as he saw Michael approaching. The earlier air of condescension hadn't been a mistake, Michael realized. It was ingrained in Peter's expression, a habitual blend of impatience and superiority. Michael took a slow breath, reminding himself why he was here. He walked over to a display of designer coats, running his fingers over the fine, rich fabric. One coat caught his eye. Dark, elegantly tailored, perfect for the autumn season. He lifted it, holding it in front of him for a closer look. "Excuse me," he called politely, voice steady. "Could you tell me more about this coat?" Peter glanced up, shifting his gaze from the coat to Michael's face, and hesitated. After a moment, he slipped his phone into his pocket, the same rehearsed smile sliding back into place as he approached. "That's one of our top-of-the-line pieces," Peter said, his tone just as clipped as before. "Handcrafted from Italian wool, it's part of our latest collection. Very exclusive." Michael nodded, examining the coat thoughtfully. "It's nice? How much is it?" Peter's smile grew tight. "It's $2,500, he said slowly, emphasizing each word as though explaining to a child. "This collection is designed for our high-end customers," he added, a touch of superiority creeping in. "We don't usually display items like this where just anyone can touch them." Michael raised an eyebrow, maintaining a neutral tone. "I see, so some pieces are kept out of reach for your regular customers?" Peter's face hardened, his polite facade slipping momentarily. "Our regular customers know what they're able to afford and what they're not," he said curtly. "We cater to a particular clientele here, people who recognize quality and have the means to purchase it." Michael returned the coat to its hanger slowly, carefully, all the while feeling a familiar frustration building within him. He forced himself to keep his tone steady. "I appreciate quality," he said evenly. "And I think I might be interested in this coat." A flicker of irritation passed across Peter's face, mingling with disbelief. He took a step closer, lowering his voice as though offering Michael private advice. "Look," Peter said, his tone laced with condescension. "I don't mean to offend, but perhaps you'd be more comfortable looking at some of our more affordable options. There's no sense wasting time on items that are clearly out of your range." Michael's patience was wearing thin. He met Peter's gaze, his voice calm but laced with steel. "You don't know what my range is," he replied, "and assuming that you do, based on appearances, isn't exactly great customer service." Peter's expression grew even tighter, his gaze once again sweeping over Michael as though evaluating him. "We have an image to maintain," he said slowly, as though explaining to someone unfamiliar with the rules. "We can't just have anyone coming in and handling our most valuable items. It's about preserving our brand." Michael took a deep breath, processing the manager's words. This wasn't just about one instance of judgment. It was about a mindset, a system that seemed to exclude rather than welcome. Peter's assumptions and dismissive treatment weren't merely personal. They reflected a deeper problem, one Michael now felt compelled to address. Silently, he turned away from Peter, letting the frustration simmer as he made his way out of the store once more. This time, however, Michael knew his visit wouldn't be ending with the closing of that door. Change was coming to this store, and to every one of his locations. And after today, he would make sure that no one else walked through those doors feeling judged, undervalued, or overlooked because of how they looked. Michael had his answer. It was time for action. Michael's gaze hardened as he looked directly at Peter, the frustration clear in his eyes. "Preserving the brand?" he repeated, his voice steady but sharp. "By judging people based on their appearance? That's not exactly how you build loyalty or respect." Peter crossed his arms, his posture stiffening defensively. "Our clientele appreciates exclusivity," he replied, his tone cold. "They don't want just anyone coming in here, touching everything. It's about the experience, the ambiance. That's what makes us different." Michael exhaled slowly, his eyes never leaving Peter's. "And you think disrespecting potential customers is part of that experience?" he asked, his voice level. Peter shrugged, a smug expression crossing his face. "I think I know my customers better than you do. It's my responsibility to protect the integrity of this store." Michael didn't respond right away. He took a moment to survey the store, the immaculate displays, the meticulously arranged luxury items, and the glances from other customers beginning to sense the tension in the air. Finally, he looked back at Peter. "Thank you for your time," he said coolly, his voice steady. "I believe I've seen enough." Without waiting for a reply, Michael turned and walked away, heading toward the door. The soft chime sounded as he stepped back out into the brisk city air. This time, he didn't linger on the sidewalk. He walked quickly down the street, his thoughts racing with what he had just witnessed. As both a businessman and a person who valued respect, what he had experienced was intolerable. He had come here to see his store's reality, and now he had. As he walked, his jaw tightened, recalling Peter's condescending tone and dismissive demeanor. This wasn't about a coat or a watch. It was about the very principles on which he had built his company. Principles that were evidently not being upheld in this store. Michael felt his initial frustration solidify into determination. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He had been treated as just another customer, judged on appearance and dismissed without a second thought. But tomorrow, he would return, not as Michael Lawson, the customer, but as Michael Lawson, the owner. And things were going to change. That night, Michael couldn't shake the interactions from his mind. Each word from Peter played over and over, each dismissive glance sharpening his resolve. By morning, his frustration had transformed into a clear plan. He would return to the store and dig deeper. He wanted to see if Peter's behavior extended beyond his own experience. If Peter treated him this way, how did he treat others? Michael was determined to find out. The next day, dressed in the same casual attire, jeans, sneakers, and his unassuming black jacket, Michael returned to the luxury store. The chime above the door signaled his arrival, and he noticed immediately that the store was quieter than it had been the previous day. There were fewer customers browsing, which gave him an ideal opportunity to observe. Michael headed directly to the jewelry section, his gaze settling on a glass case displaying an array of diamond bracelets and necklaces, each piece sparkling under the soft lighting, their price tags discreetly hidden. As he studied an intricate diamond bracelet, he noticed Peter out of the corner of his eye. Peter was standing near the back of the store, speaking in low tones to a young woman with a concerned look on her face. It was Emma Clark, the assistant manager. She nodded as Peter spoke, her hands nervously gripping a clipboard. Michael strained to catch fragments of their conversation. "I don't care if he's a potential customer," Peter was saying, his voice low but firm. "We have a certain standard here. Just keep an eye on him." Emma cast a quick glance in Michael's direction, her face reflecting a mixture of worry and sympathy. Their eyes met briefly, and then she looked away. Michael acted as though he hadn't noticed, continuing to examine the jewelry. It was clear now that Peter had instructed his staff to be cautious around him. This revelation only strengthened Michael's resolve to confront Peter again. But first, he wanted to see the extent of Peter's bias. He picked out a diamond necklace, Their Hausie de Grace, then gestured to a nearby sales associate for assistance. A young woman approached him, her expression polite but slightly guarded. "Good morning," Michael said with a warm smile. "Could you tell me a bit more about this necklace?" The sales associate glanced nervously over her shoulder at Peter, who was watching them intently from across the store. She hesitated, then turned back to Michael. "This is one of our signature pieces," she replied quietly. "This necklace is crafted with the finest diamonds and set in platinum. It's priced at $15,000, the sales associate explained, her voice respectful but slightly cautious as she noted Michael's casual appearance. Michael nodded appreciatively. "It's beautiful," he said with a genuine smile. "Could I take a closer look?" Before the associate could respond, Peter strode over, his expression stern. "Is there an issue here?" he asked, directing his question to the associate, barely acknowledging Michael. "No problem at all," Michael replied, stepping in calmly. "I was just asking about this necklace. I'd like to inspect it more closely." Peter's eyes flashed with irritation, a hint of disdain in his tone. "I don't think that's necessary," he replied, his voice thick with condescension. "As I mentioned before, we have other pieces that might be more suitable for you." Michael met Peter's gaze directly, refusing to be dismissed. "I'm interested in this one," he said firmly. "I'd like to see how it looks." Peter crossed his arms, his patience visibly wearing thin. "Our policy is to reserve pieces like this for customers who are serious about purchasing. I can't have just anyone trying out our most valuable items." Michael's calm exterior began to slip, his frustration showing through. "And what makes you think I'm not serious?" Peter gave him a once-over, his sneer unmistakable. "Experience," he replied coldly. "I know who can afford what. It's my job to protect this store's integrity and brand. We have a reputation to uphold." Michael felt his temper rise, but kept his voice steady. "And you uphold that reputation by judging people based on their appearance? By denying service to someone because they don't look the way you think they should?" Peter's expression remained unchanged, his voice firm. "It's not personal, it's business. Our clients expect a certain level of exclusivity. I don't have time to waste on people who aren't serious buyers." Michael took a step closer, lowering his voice so only Peter could hear. "And how many serious buyers have you turned away because you made assumptions?" he asked. "How many people have you disrespected because you decided they didn't fit your idea of a customer?" Peter's jaw clenched, a flicker of uncertainty flashing in his eyes before he steeled himself. "I run this store the way I see fit," he said sharply. "And frankly, I don't have to explain myself to you." Michael's gaze didn't waver, anger simmering beneath his steady exterior. "You may not have to explain yourself to me," he replied quietly, "but you will have to answer to someone. This kind of treatment isn't just bad for business. It's wrong." For a split second, Peter's confidence faltered, but he quickly masked it with a hardened expression. "If you don't like how things are done here, you're welcome to leave," he said dismissively. "There are plenty of other stores that might suit your tastes." Michael took a deep breath, stepping back and glancing over at Emma, who had been watching the exchange with a worried expression. "Thank you for your time," he said to Peter, his tone now cold. "I'll make sure the right people know exactly how you're running this store." With that, Michael turned and walked out, the door chime echoing louder than before as he stepped back onto the bustling sidewalk. He knew now what he had to do. He had seen enough to understand that Peter's behavior wasn't just an isolated attitude, it was a mindset, a way of thinking that needed to be addressed. As Michael walked away, his resolve solidified. He had hoped for a different outcome, but now he was certain that change was necessary, and that change would start from the top. That evening, he spent hours preparing for the steps he would take. By morning, his plan was set. Instead of returning to the luxury store, Michael headed straight to his company's headquarters, a sleek glass building in Midtown Manhattan. Inside, the atmosphere was one of quiet efficiency, with phones ringing softly and employees moving purposefully through the hallways. Michael entered the executive conference room, a large, polished space with a long table and floor-to-ceiling windows offering sweeping views of the city. He took a seat at the head of the table, his expression calm but resolute. He had arranged for Peter Dawson to meet him here under the pretense of discussing store performance and future goals, knowing that this would ensure Peter showed up. Michael's assistant, Laura, stood by the door, waiting for Peter's arrival. Soon, Peter entered the room, his usual air of confidence wrapping around him like a shield. Peter entered the conference room, dressed in a sharp suit and with an expression that combined curiosity with a hint of annoyance. He seemed to think he was being summoned for a routine check-in, perhaps even to receive praise for his work at the store. As he walked in, Peter's steps faltered slightly when he saw Michael sitting at the head of the table. His eyes widened in surprise, and he glanced at Laura, Michael's assistant, then back at Michael, confusion clear on his face. It was evident that he didn't recognize Michael, his boss, from their encounter at the store the previous day. Michael remained silent for a moment, allowing Peter to absorb the situation. Then he spoke, his tone calm but commanding. "Take a seat, Peter," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Peter hesitated, then pulled out the chair and sat down, his confidence slightly shaken. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson," he said cautiously, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I wasn't expecting to see you here. Is everything all right?" Michael leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. "No, Peter. Everything is not all right. I'm here to address some serious concerns about your behavior at the store." Peter's expression shifted from confusion to an attempt at his usual confidence. "Concerns? About what? I've been running the store the same way I always have. Sales are up, and the brand's image remains strong. If there's an issue, I'm more than happy to address it." Michael's expression remained stoic. "Sales figures aren't the issue, Peter. The issue is how you treat people." Michael paused, watching as realization slowly dawned on Peter's face, followed by a flicker of panic. "I visited the store yesterday," Michael continued. "You didn't recognize me because I came in as a regular customer, dressed casually." Peter's eyes widened in shock, his face paling as he tried to formulate a response. His mouth opened and closed as he grasped for words, but Michael continued before he could respond. "I saw firsthand how you judged me based on my appearance," Michael said, his tone steady but firm. "You made assumptions, dismissed me, and refused to provide the same level of service you would for someone you deemed a worthy customer. This isn't just about how you treated me, Peter. It's about how you likely treat others, anyone who doesn't fit your narrow view of who deserves respect." Peter swallowed hard, his voice faltering. "Mr. Lawson, I didn't realize it was you. If I had known..." Michael raised a hand, cutting him off. "That's precisely the issue, Peter. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with basic human decency. This company stands for inclusivity and respect. We've built our brand on the idea that luxury isn't just about exclusivity, it's about making people feel valued. You've turned that store into the exact opposite of what it's meant to represent." Peter shifted uncomfortably in his seat, a look of desperation creeping into his eyes. "I was only trying to maintain the brand's image," he stammered, "to keep it exclusive, high-end. Our customers expect a certain atmosphere, a certain type of clientele." Michael's gaze hardened. "Our customers expect quality products and respectful service, regardless of what they look like or how they're dressed. They deserve to feel welcome, not judged. Your behavior undermines everything this brand is supposed to represent." Peter's face now held a mask of desperation. "Please, Mr. Lawson," he pleaded. "I understand now. I can change. I'll do better. I'll implement new training, whatever you need." Michael shook his head slowly. "It's too late for that, Peter. This isn't just about training, it's about your attitude. Your perspective on people is fundamentally flawed, and that's not something I can allow to continue." He took a breath, his voice firm and resolute. "Effective immediately, I'm terminating your franchise agreement. You are no longer responsible for that store." Peter's eyes widened in shock. "You can't be serious," he stammered, disbelief and anger flaring in his expression. "I've been with this company for years. I helped build that store's reputation. You can't just cut me off like this." Michael stood, his gaze steady and unwavering. "Yes, I can," he replied. "And I will. Your actions and attitude reflect on the entire company, and I won't let one person's prejudices tarnish what we've built." He signaled to his assistant. "Security will escort you out. You'll receive instructions on the termination process and what comes next." Peter also stood, his face contorted with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're making a huge mistake. I'm the best manager this company has. You'll regret this, Lawson." Michael remained calm, his voice steady and unshaken. "No, Peter. The mistake was keeping you in a position where you could bring harm to our brand and alienate customers." He watched as security approached to escort Peter out, his gaze unwavering. Peter threw one last look of fury over his shoulder as he left the room, but Michael's resolve didn't waver. He knew that this decision wasn't just about business. It was about integrity, values, and the mission he had set for his company. "I won't regret ensuring that my stores are managed by people who truly understand the brand's values," Michael said firmly. He watched as Peter stared at him for a brief moment, then turned on his heel and stormed out of the conference room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Michael felt a sense of resolution as Peter's figure disappeared. Firing Peter wasn't just about removing one person. It was about protecting the integrity of the brand and ensuring that every customer felt valued and respected. Michael turned to his assistant, Laura, who had quietly observed the entire exchange. "Make sure Peter is escorted out and that the transition process starts immediately," he instructed. Laura nodded. "Yes, Mr. Lawson, I'll take care of it." Michael walked over to the large window, looking out over the bustling streets of New York City. Today he had taken an important step toward upholding the values that defined his brand. But he knew there was still work to do. More changes would be necessary to guarantee that every store within his company upheld the principles he held dear. For now, however, he felt a sense of calm settle over him. The message was clear. Respect and integrity would always come first. He stood at the window, gazing down at the city below. The meeting with Peter had gone as anticipated, but it didn't bring him any real satisfaction. Michael knew that removing Peter was essential, but it was only the beginning of addressing a larger issue. As he turned away from the window, his phone buzzed with a message from Emma Clark, the assistant manager at the store. She had agreed to come to headquarters to discuss the store's future. Michael walked down the hallway to the conference room where Emma was waiting. As he entered, she quickly stood up, looking a bit nervous. Her brown hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and she wore a simple blouse and skirt, her expression a mix of apprehension and hope. Michael gave her a reassuring smile. "Thank you for coming, Emma," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "I know it's been a stressful few days." Emma nodded, her hands fidgeting slightly in her lap. "Yes, Mr. Lawson, it has been. I heard about what happened with Peter. The staff is talking, and they're worried about what will happen to the store." Michael sat across from her, his expression understanding. "I understand, and that's why I wanted to meet with you. Peter's departure was necessary for the health of the company, but I know it brings some uncertainty. I want to make sure the store is in good hands going forward." Emma nodded, her expression serious. "I appreciate that, Mr. Lawson. I've always tried my best at the store, but it's been challenging. Peter had his own way of doing things, and it didn't always align with what I thought was right." Michael observed her thoughtfully. "I saw how you conducted yourself in the store, Emma. You remained professional, even when things became tense. That's why I'd like to offer you the position of interim manager. You know the staff, you know the store, and I believe you understand the values that this brand stands for." Emma's eyes widened, surprise and relief flooding her face. "Interim manager?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Lawson, I don't know what to say. I never expected this." Michael smiled gently. "Just say you'll take the role and help me ensure that the store reflects the values we believe in. I need someone I can trust to lead, someone who won't repeat Peter's mistakes." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she nodded. "Yes, Mr. Lawson. I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes to make the store what it should be. I've always believed in treating every customer with respect, no matter who they are." Michael's expression softened. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You'll have my full support, and we'll work together to make the necessary changes. I want you to feel empowered to address any issues and ensure that every customer feels welcome and valued." Emma's relief was evident as she smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I've always cared about the store and the people who work there. I just never felt like I had the authority to make a difference." Michael nodded. "Well, you do now. I'll make sure you have all the resources you need. We'll start with retraining for the entire staff, focusing on customer service and inclusion. I want every person who walks through those doors to feel like they belong, whether they're—" He paused, letting the weight of his words settle, knowing Emma understood the mission. Whether they're buying a $10,000 watch or just browsing, Michael said, watching Emma's confidence grow as they talked. I can do that, Emma replied, nodding firmly. I know the team will respond well, they just need to know that their work is valued and that they're contributing to a positive environment. Michael leaned back in his chair, feeling a satisfaction he hadn't felt in a long time. Good. I'll be checking in regularly, but I trust you to handle things day to day. This is something we're building together, Emma. The success of the store isn't just about profits, it's about creating a community based on respect and inclusivity. Emma smiled, the tension easing from her shoulders. I won't let you down, Mr. Lawson. I'll make sure this store represents everything your brand stands for. Michael stood up and extended his hand. I know you will. Thank you for stepping up. I'm excited to see the positive changes you'll bring. Emma shook his hand firmly, a newfound sense of purpose lighting up her expression. Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I'm looking forward to making a real difference. As Emma left the conference room, Michael felt a renewed optimism. The events of the past few days had been challenging, but they had sparked necessary change. He knew there was more work ahead, more stores to visit, more managers to meet, but today marked a significant step forward. Returning to his office, Michael looked out over the city once more. He thought about the people who walk through his stores each day, each bringing their unique stories, hopes, and dreams. He had built his brand on the principle that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity, regardless of who they were. Today, he had taken a firm step to ensure that principle would be upheld. As the sun began to set over the skyline, Michael felt a quiet sense of pride. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a leader with the responsibility to make a positive impact. With people like Emma leading his stores, he was confident they would continue to thrive, not merely as places of luxury, but as places where everyone felt welcome. The day after Peter's departure, Michael wasted no time implementing changes at the store. He scheduled a meeting with the staff to discuss the store's new direction and to reassure them that, despite the sudden shift in management, their roles were valued and secure. He knew that providing stability and clear communication would be key to transforming the store into a place that truly embodied the brand's values of inclusivity and respect. The meeting took place in a private conference room at company headquarters, a smaller but equally elegant room compared to where Michael had met with Peter. As the staff filed in, he noticed a mix of curiosity and apprehension on their faces. Emma stood at the front with Michael, holding a clipboard and looking more confident than she had the previous day. Michael rose to address the room, his voice calm and reassuring. Thank you all for coming, he began. I know the past few days have been challenging, and I want to be transparent about what's happening. Peter Dawson is no longer with the company. His departure was necessary to realign our store's operations with the values this brand represents. A murmur rippled through the room as staff exchanged glances. Michael could see the questions in their eyes, the uncertainty of what this meant for their futures. He continued, meeting as many eyes as possible to convey sincerity. I want to be clear that your positions are not in jeopardy. We deeply value each of you and the work you do. However, we'll be making some changes to ensure that our store provides a welcoming environment for all customers, regardless of who they are or how they look. This is about more than making sales. It's about building genuine relationships and treating every person who enters our doors with respect. Emma stepped forward, her voice steady as she addressed the team. As the new interim manager, I'll be leading us in these efforts. We'll focus on enhancing customer service, and I'll be working closely with each of you to make sure we're all aligned with these values. This isn't about blame, it's about growing together and improving how we serve our customers. One of the team members raised a hand. What kind of changes can we expect in our day-to-day work? She asked hesitantly. Emma smiled, her tone encouraging. We'll start with customer service training that focuses on inclusivity and respect. The goal is to create an environment where every customer feels valued and appreciated, no matter their background. It's not just about the high-end clientele, it's about everyone who steps through our doors. Michael nodded in agreement. We're building a culture that embodies respect and care. You'll each play a crucial role in setting this example, and I'll make sure you have the resources you need to succeed." The team seemed to relax, sensing the positive direction of the changes. Another staff member spoke up. "It's good to know that we're moving forward with a focus on respect. Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of what really matters." Emma looked around the room, her gaze warm and confident. "This is the start of a new chapter for us. Together, we can make this store a place that reflects the true spirit of the brand, a place where everyone, whether they're shopping for luxury or simply browsing, feels welcome." As the meeting concluded, Michael felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had taken decisive action to ensure his stores weren't just luxurious spaces, but places where everyone could feel valued. With Emma at the helm and the team on board, he was confident the store would embody the values he held dear. This change was only the beginning, but it was a strong start. As the meeting continued, a young sales associate named Jacob raised his hand. "What exactly does this training involve?" he asked. "And how long will it last?" Michael nodded toward Emma, who responded confidently. "The training will cover everything from welcoming customers to handling sensitive situations. We'll have workshops on cultural awareness and inclusivity. The goal is for everyone to feel empowered to provide the best possible service. We'll start with a series of short sessions over the next few weeks, and then there will be ongoing training throughout the year." Jacob nodded, appearing satisfied with the answer. Then, an older employee named Linda spoke up. "And what should we do if we see behavior that doesn't align with these values? Do we report it directly to you, Emma?" Michael stepped in to clarify. "Yes, you can bring any concerns to Emma, and you're also welcome to come directly to me. My door is always open. We take these matters seriously, and I want everyone to feel safe and supported in speaking up. We're building a culture of accountability and respect, and that starts with all of us." The staff seemed to visibly relax, and Michael sensed a shift in the room. The initial tension was easing, replaced by a cautious optimism. They weren't just being told about changes. They were being included in the process, which was essential to building trust. "Are there any other questions?" Michael asked, looking around the room. A young woman named Sophie, who worked as a cashier, raised her hand. "What if we encounter customers who act like Peter did? How do we handle difficult situations where customers are being rude or discriminatory?" Emma nodded thoughtfully. "That's a great question, Sophie. Part of our training will cover conflict resolution and de-escalation techniques. If you ever feel uncomfortable or if a customer is acting inappropriately, don't hesitate to call on a manager. We want you to feel confident in handling situations professionally, but we're also here to support you." Michael nodded in agreement. "Remember, you're not alone in this. We're a team, and we'll work together to make sure everyone feels respected, both staff and customers alike." The staff relaxed further, reassured by the clear plan and the support being offered. Michael felt a sense of relief, too. He knew these changes wouldn't solve every problem overnight, but they were an essential first step. To truly make the store a place where everyone felt welcome and valued, it required a commitment from everyone involved. "Thank you all for your time," Michael said, wrapping up the meeting. "I have confidence in each of you, and I believe we can make this store a model of what our brand stands for. Let's work together to make that happen." As the staff began to file out, some stopped to ask Emma quick questions, while others returned to their duties with a renewed sense of purpose. Michael watched them go, feeling hopeful. He was confident he'd made the right decision in promoting Emma. Her leadership qualities were already evident, and her connection with the staff was clear. She was proving to be exactly what the store needed. When the room had emptied, Michael turned to Emma. "You did well today," he said, his tone sincere. "The staff respects you, and they're looking to you for guidance. Keep that momentum going." Emma smiled, looking both relieved and determined. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I won't let you down. I believe we can make a real difference here." Michael nodded. "I know you will. I'll be checking in regularly, but I trust you to handle things on the ground. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out." Emma agreed. And with that, Michael left the conference room, his mind already on the next steps. There were other stores to visit, other managers to meet. The issue with Peter had been a wake-up call, a reminder that even the best intentions could be undercut by prejudice and poor leadership. As Michael walked through the halls of his headquarters, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Confronting Peter had been difficult, but it was necessary. Justice wasn't just about addressing individual misconduct. It was about creating an environment where such behavior wouldn't be tolerated in the first place. Michael was committed to building a company where respect, inclusivity, and integrity were more than just words in a mission statement. They were principles that guided every decision, every action, and every interaction. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but he was prepared to face them. His commitment to this mission was unwavering, and he was ready to take on whatever lay ahead. Michael's commitment to his brand's values, along with support from leaders like Emma, gave him the confidence that they could create meaningful, lasting change. Already, the store was showing signs of transformation. The atmosphere felt lighter, and the staff seemed more engaged and welcoming. His decision to appoint Emma as interim manager had proven wise. She had efficiently organized the training sessions, and the team was responding positively, eager to foster an environment of inclusivity and respect. Michael had promised to check in regularly, and today he decided to make an unannounced visit to observe the progress. As he entered, the familiar chime sounded above the door, and he was immediately greeted by Jacob, the sales associate who had raised questions during the team meeting. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson," Jacob said with a warm smile. "It's great to see you." "Good morning, Jacob," Michael replied, shaking his hand. "How's everything going?" Jacob's face lit up. "Really well, actually. The training has been incredibly helpful, and Emma has been fantastic. The whole team feels more connected, and we're all on the same page about how we want to treat our customers." Michael smiled. "That's exactly what I hope to hear. Keep up the good work. I'm proud of how all of you have handled this transition." As he moved further into the store, Michael observed customers being warmly greeted, staff members assisting without hesitation, and an overall positive energy. It was a stark contrast to the atmosphere he had encountered during his initial visit, back when Peter was in charge. Seeing his vision come to life filled him with satisfaction. Michael made his way to the back of the store, where he spotted Emma speaking with a customer. She glanced up, noticed Michael, and politely excused herself. "Mr. Lawson, it's good to see you," she said, her face brightening. "You too, Emma," Michael replied. "I just wanted to stop by and see how things were going. It looks like you've done a fantastic job here." Emma's face glowed with pride. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. The team has been amazing. They've really embraced the changes, and we're already getting positive feedback from customers. I think we're on the right track." Michael nodded. "I agree. You've turned things around here quickly, and I couldn't be more pleased with the progress. I'll continue to support you however I can." Their conversation was interrupted by the chime of the door opening loudly. Michael turned to see Peter Dawson standing at the entrance. Peter's suit was less crisp than usual, and his face was etched with worry. His eyes scanned the store until they landed on Michael and Emma. Michael's expression hardened slightly. He hadn't expected to see Peter here, especially not after their last encounter. Peter approached them, his steps slower than usual, his posture lacking the confidence it once held. "Mr. Lawson," Peter began, his voice almost pleading, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I need to talk to you. Please, just give me a moment." Michael's face remained impassive as he glanced at Emma, who looked surprised but stayed silent. Turning back to Peter, he replied, "All right, Peter, you have a moment. What is it you'd like to say?" Peter took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging. "I came to apologize, Mr. Lawson," he said. "I realize now that I made a terrible mistake. I judged people unfairly. I let my prejudices interfere with my work. I'm truly sorry." Michael listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. Peter's voice grew thick with desperation as he continued. "I've been with this company for years. I care about the brand, about the store. Please, give me another chance. Let me prove that I can change, that I can run the store the way you want it to be run. I'll do anything." Michael remained silent for a moment, letting Peter's words linger in the air. He thought about the countless times Peter had likely dismissed customers based on their appearance and the dismissive treatment he had received himself. Peter's sudden plea seemed more driven by desperation than genuine remorse. "I appreciate your apology, Peter," Michael said at last, his tone calm but firm. "But this isn't about one mistake. It's about a pattern of behavior, a mindset you've demonstrated over the years. What I witnessed in the store wasn't an isolated incident. It was a reflection of how you view certain people." "It wasn't just an oversight, Peter," Michael said, his voice firm. "It was the result of a deeply ingrained attitude that doesn't align with our values." Peter's face fell, his eyes filling with a mix of frustration and despair. "Mr. Lawson, please," he pleaded, his voice almost a whisper. "I can learn. I can change. Just give me back the store and I'll prove it to you." Michael shook his head slowly. "The decision has been made, Peter. The store is thriving under Emma's leadership, and the team has responded positively to the changes. I can't go back to the way things were. My responsibility is to the company and to every customer who walks through those doors. Allowing you to return would undermine everything we've worked so hard to achieve." Peter's shoulders slumped as his last hope faded. He looked down, desperation turning to resignation. "I understand," he murmured quietly, almost to himself. "I just thought, maybe." Michael's tone softened slightly. "Peter, I hope you take this as an opportunity to reflect and grow. This isn't about punishment. It's about ensuring the right people are in place to uphold the brand's values. I wish you the best in your future endeavors, but the store will not be returning to you." Peter nodded, his eyes downcast. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Lawson," he said quietly. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the store, his footsteps heavy with the weight of his departure. Michael watched him go, feeling a mix of pity and resolve. Peter's apology had come too late. The damage was done, and Michael couldn't jeopardize the integrity of his brand by giving him another chance. His responsibility was to his company, his employees, and his customers. Emma stood quietly beside Michael, her expression one of relief. "Thank you for not letting him come back," she said softly. "I think the team would have felt uneasy if he did." Michael nodded, looking around at the transformed store. "I made the decision based on what's best for the store and for everyone who works here. You're doing a fantastic job, Emma. Keep it up. We're building something special here, and I trust you to lead." Emma smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Lawson. I won't let you down." Michael took a moment to observe the store, watching as the staff interacted with customers. Each engagement was warm, welcoming, and respectful. The change was real, and it was having a tangible impact on both the atmosphere and the service. A deep sense of pride and satisfaction filled him. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but with strong leadership and a commitment to the company's values, he felt prepared to meet them. Leaving the store, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was what he had worked for, to create a brand that stood not only for luxury, but also for respect, integrity, and inclusivity. With the right people in place, he was confident that his vision would continue to thrive.